Well, we're going to take it right through till 5 o'clock, and then this afternoon I'm going to join you at the pool party. How nice is that? So if you still have questions or you're thinking of some things, then we're going to we'll pick it up at the party, but we'll wrap up right at 5. So we're going to continue this conversation. I left you with the cliffhanger. How many of you does it make a little nervous to share financial information? Okay, fair enough. And here are a couple of things that you might consider here in seminar land. First off, some of my clients share everything with their team members, including how much they make for salary, and the sky doesn't fall. Just saying. Having said that, you don't have to. So if you were to, again, get the form, look at it a little bit. If you were to customize that form for you, some of the numbers that I encourage you to share would be total sales compared to budget. Your labor as a percentage of sales compared to budget. Maybe total payroll, right? So that's all everybody lumped together, but no one would see that number specifically. But the cool thing about tracking payroll is it's your #1 expense and it's variable. So if it's not busy, we have to send guys home because otherwise that number will spike and we may lose money. You don't necessarily have to show them the cash flow position. Now, some of you also share numbers already. So who shares, is it called the big board, Greg? What's the big one?
It shows the KPIs of the service provider.
There's the KPIs of the service guys. So, if they're already used to keeping score individually, how many of you show that score? All right, so they'll kind of have a clue because now they'll see the whole score. You might reserve the financial quick check or the dashboard report for this once-a-week meeting. For starters, you might keep it just with your bookkeeper and the owners. And then later on, with your service manager or your field supervisors or the guys who may be auditioning to go run a branch of their own. Because if they understand the score, then they'll start to connect, and ooh, this is so delicious when it happens. They'll start to connect some behaviors. So Steve might even say, hey, we're going to have to send a few guys home because the ice storm just hit. If we pay them and we don't have sales, our labor as a percentage of sales is going to spike, and then I'm not going to be able to hit my numbers, right? That's a really cool thing for him to be in on the score on, right? So for today, for Seminar Land, I encourage you to just think of ways that you might be able to share the score with key people at your company who will help you make it better.
Hey, Alan.
Yes, sir.
You can at least share everything above the gross profit line.
I love that. Okay.
All of direct costs. That should never be a secret.
That's a lovely. That's exactly right. So that's a lovely gradient. And so for those of you who are new to the lingo, sales minus direct costs or cost of goods sold or COGS. The cost of goods sold are those expenses that are variable with sales, and it's usually labor, materials, and maybe subcontractors if you use them. That's all. But what you're saying, what's your name?
Larry.
Larry. Larry's a smart guy because everything they do impacts sales, labor, and materials. So that gives them an idea. And if you did this per division, suppose you have the service division and the install division, and you have a service manager and an install manager, this gives them their overarching score. And it's a lovely gradient right there to start with. So this might give you some numbers to share, but here's the deal. If you're going to share numbers, they've got to be real. Only tell the truth. So if you don't want to share, don't do it. But this is what happens. Like you said, job costing. Like it would be nice to know how many hours, for instance, somebody put in a big job. You got a big installation, and the guy who sells the job is going to put in 100 hours. But then instead of telling the service manager it's 100 hours, he says 80. And then the lead tech hears that it's 60, and by the time the Jaboni hears about it, we got to get this job done in a day. You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, so if you tell the score, if you share the numbers, make sure they're the truth. All right? Because this is how you build trust, by telling the truth. So lots of ways to make this work for you, and we can, visit after class and at the pool tonight if you've got some ideas. All right, well, let's dig into the, this morning, not this morning, but earlier, a moment ago, I left you with the idea of why not get to a known financial position. Let's look at the score every week, and maybe we could even share that score, at least part of it, with some of the people who are going to help you impact that score. This second piece, we're going to dig into selling prices, raising your prices, and you've already got some great tools at your disposal with Mr. Electric, and we'll reference those. But the bigger issue can be between your ears in terms of understanding that if you were to just raise your prices right now, all things being equal, every dollar you increase your prices is going to fall to the bottom line in profit. Does that make sense? Now, chances are good if you raise your prices, you'll find more things to spend money on, and I trust that you're going to do wonderful things. You might buy nicer trucks. You might upgrade your uniforms. You might pay your guys more. You might kick in that bonus program, the 401k. Money buys options, but mathematically, when you create a price increase, all other costs being the same, every dollar of that will fall to the bottom line to profit. It's that easy. Do you get this? Isn't that fun? Think about it in seminar land. All right, now I just showed you that because would only a plumber's wife have this in their garden? We call this the Cialis tub. All right. And then this is what you do, right? Is there anybody here who knows what that is? Can you see it? I mean, the slide's a little odd to see it. It's a breaker box. All right, so there's lightning running through that thing, right? You could fry a man or a woman pretty easily if they didn't know what they were doing. And I will tell you, for those of you who are struggling with the numbers, struggling with, oh, look, I lost your husband. I'm not going back in there, he says. He's good, okay. But, if you know how to do this, might I suggest, like if you're looking at this and you're the one who's in charge of the numbers and you have to learn this, if you know how to do this, might I suggest that learning the accounting is infinitely easier and there's a technology behind it. So there are principles in accounting that parallel principles of physics. Assets equals liabilities plus equity is based on an equation. So it's kind of like in plumbing, there's vents and drains, there's physics. In your industry, there's physics, there's rules, there's a technology. One of the ways you might get over any resistance you have to the numbers is to approach it that way. Does that make sense? I mean, there is as much technology in accounting as in one little tiny corner of that. So you can figure this out, and that might be a great way for you to wrap your arms around it. Okay, so this afternoon, this morning, or this earlier session, we talked about getting to a known financial position and the financial quick check, that's that one-page report, and you got a copy. That's one of the freebies I gave you. All right, now we're going to talk about why we're here, and we're here to make more. Oh, come on. 1, 2, 3. Money. Yeah, okay, I love that. All right, we're here to make more money. We're going to talk about the B word, which is what I call budgeting. We're talking about how much should I charge. You got a copy of that book. Very nice. Sweet spot jobs, jobs where you can raise your prices and no one will even notice. And then getting to yes. And remember, our overarching question is, what do you want? Because the more money you want to make, the higher your prices have to go. Do you get that? All right? Cool. All right, here's one rule. No whining. No whining. No whining. So when I'm done, what will happen is, well, you guys might experience this. Do you ever have a meeting at your shop and then the guys instantly have another meeting out in the parking lot? Oh, yeah. All right, that may well happen after my meeting with you. You're going to go out there and go, she is, never. It's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I want you guys to do with each other. I want you to help each other. If someone starts whining, you're going to call them on it by flashing a W. And you're going to say, no whining, knock it off. So practice that. No whining, knock it off. Knock it off. Do or do not, says Yoda, right? Do or do not, but no whining. All right? So you don't have to take any of the information that I share, but what is not okay is to tell me or anybody else in this room that it doesn't work. It's like, you know, milking a cow. I can share with you how to milk a cow. You can choose whether or not you're going to milk the cow, right? No wrong in either decision, but there is a good way and a bad way to milk a cow. Fair enough? Okay. All right, that's the one rule. Okay, so I shared with you what Warren Buffett said earlier about the 3 ways to grow assets. 3 ways. One is to borrow money. Second way is owner investment. Third way is to charge more than it costs and create a profit. We love that. And that, my friends, will fix just about everything. If you've got a lot of debt, the only way to get out of debt is to make a really great profit and take it in cash and pay your debt down. This is so easy. Isn't that easy? You can't borrow your way out of debt. But you could charge more. You know who will pay for your debt and your past mistakes? Your customers. Your current customers will pay for your past mistakes. That's how it works. That's sweet. All right, here's the 4th way you could make money. That if you do such a great job with that 3rd way, that your company is rocking solid and you're making money for nothing, chicks for free, you're charging more than it costs and making a really good profit and collecting it in cash, someone will buy your company for more than it's worth, for the hope of the future profits because you've done such a great job. Are you with me on this? Am I right about this, Mr. Finance? Isn't that how it works? Paul, that's you. Right. Did they teach you something else in finance school, at school? That's it, right? That's it. If you didn't go to college, you just got everything that Paul and I learned there. So there you go. Okay. So let me talk to you about the worst way to set prices. This is my niece Zoe, totally ratting out her sister Coco. Because Coco is responsible for this smear of crayon on the back of the door. And her cousin Ava is responsible for this. So Coco said that the reason why she drew on the back of the door is because Ava did. Anybody ever experienced something like that? And don't you just love the face on Zoe? Like, yeah, let me show you what just happened. The worst way to set prices is to consider what other people in your market area are charging and then charge what they charge. Now, you've got some really great tools at Mr. Electric. You're going to use, remind me what this is, Ashley. Okay, so you have menu pricing, and then you have a menu pricing factor. And for those of you who are more ambitious or aggressive with your pricing, you can increase the factor. Am I right? Is this how it goes? All right, so one of the things you might consider here in seminar land is how many factors you want to start using. How much do you want to increase that by? All right, is there a point where you could price yourself out of the marketplace? What do you think? Maybe? Okay, well, let me share what I think. That you can charge as much as you want for the powerful, essential, dangerous work that you do, as long as you're willing to learn how to communicate the value of those services. Does this make sense? And that's what we're going to explore this afternoon. So you could take that factor times 3 or 4 or 5. Is that how it works? What's the language you use?
10, 20, 30, 40 increase, whatever. $1
Oh, a dollar number. Okay, so you go 10, 20, 30, 40, as big as you want to go. Does Mr. Electric at any point tell you you're charging too much? God bless you. Thank you. Yeah, Paul going, nope, we don't do that. All right, so you can charge as much as you need to. Now, this is really good news. And if we could, you know, if the idea is that at some point we charge so much that we go out of business, let me ask you this. Can you charge so little that people don't complain? Have you ever done work for free for your family, for your church, and had them still complain? Yeah. All right. Because no one ever wants to buy your stuff. They never want to buy your stuff. No one is at home thinking, I could buy a pair of shoes, or I could get that breaker box figured out. Right? Now, how many of you sell nice designer fixtures? Is anyone going in that direction? Okay, in that case, you may be flirting with some nice sexy options that people are going to want to spend additional dollars for. Then you have that option. But how many of you do mostly service and replacement work on systems that go, they don't want what you have. So the price is always going to be my husband, the plumber, can get a water heater for cost. And he will put it in, and I don't have to pay an additional bill, and I still don't want to buy that water heater when mine goes kaput, because I'd rather buy shoes. Does this make sense? So you're never going to be at such an appealing price point that people are going to just choose to spend the day looking at what you have to offer. Fair enough? So the pricing point is going to be always up to you and what you want. And so you're going to go back to the budget, or the B word. And I call it this because people have a hard time with budgeting. Like, it's like dieting. It means, no fun, deprivation, can't do what I want to do. But budgeting is magic. Budgeting is fantastic because budgeting does these two cool things for you. One is it allows you to set goals. And if you set a goal for $1 million for your company, then it also dovetails into what the goals for the techs would be. Isn't that fun? So if you have $1 million for the company and I've got 4 guys, I'm going to divide $1 million by 4, and now I've got a game for the techs to play. So the goals come from the budget, or this is the way the goals are completely arbitrary. You get to make them up. This is just the game. You pick a point on the horizon and we say we're going to go there. Oh, I found your husband. You're back there. Are you mad at her for picking on you earlier? Yeah. No, I'm just checking in. All right, okay. I didn't know if there was a beef that I needed to step in on. I understand. I've been there. Okay, so the budget is going to give you goals, just a game to play. And then you might share that game with your team members. And then the budget may also steer you in the direction of your selling prices. In other words, if you set a goal for $1 million and you're a one-man shop, and you decide you're going to sell your services for $30 an hour, how many of you get you're never going to get there? So by looking at that budgeted number and what you have to sell, which is primarily your hourly rate, this is how you figure out how much you're going to have to charge. So Mr. Electric has a budgeting tool, correct? Will one of these guys sit down with you and go through and put a budget together? How many of you have done that? Oh, this is good. This is good. Did you hit your budget? You did? Did you blow it away?
Look at it after you do it.
He said, are you supposed to look at it after you do it? Yeah, you can look at it again. Now, did you hit your goal?
Are we supposed to look at it?
Are you supposed to look at it? Okay, so you went through it. Okay, so this is, you put the budget together, but here's something cool about this. Even if, there's no wrong in anything you do. You'll all get there in the end. Really, just lighten up about this whole thing. If you put together a budget, you put together a business plan, you put together your marketing goals, and you put them on the shelf somewhere. If you were to pull those off the shelf and open it up, you're going to have made some of those things come true. It's just the creative process is so powerful. First you think it, then you ink it, and it moves from thought form into reality, and that is the creative process. So if you were to dust that budget off, you probably will be pretty pleased. I don't know, call me, let me know how it goes. See if you can find it, or start over. Start over. We're going to start over. I love that. Just start from scratch. Yep, just start over. But this is my question to you, as I share this information. Have I blown your mind with how complicated my content is? Oh, you're saying yes. No, you're teasing me. This is easy, right? It's really basic stuff. So is it for you a matter of not having the information? Or is it a matter of not implementing? That's a good thing to know. You got the tools, you just plug the time on your calendar, you sit down, you do some of the things that you really don't like to do, and if you discipline yourself this much, you may find that you get a different and better result. It's just something to consider. All right, but it's good, you've got the information. That's why you joined the group. Huge reason. All right, they've got it. Call them up, set the schedule, put your budget together, and start playing a better game. Cool. All right, now this is how my mentor taught me how to do it. Now I'm going to bring this up. You've got a pricing thing. You could just make it easy on yourself. Some of my clients are not very bright, God bless them. And I will tell them, why don't you just double your prices? That'll help. And they go, okay, and they do, and they make more money. Easy, easy peasy lemon squeezy. All right, now for me, when I'm writing the letter to Frank Blau, highly educated chick like me, and I'm know-it-all, blah, 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 I had to crunch the numbers a little more. So my mentor, Frank, took me through this exercise, and you might want to take your guys through something like this, or your kid who's starting a business through something like this. Okay, suppose you want to have a service business, and you want to make $100,000. Do you think the owner of a service business, $100,000 is too much?
No.
No. For the dangerous, important, essential work that you do, that's a fraction of what you're worth. All right, but $100,000 makes the math easy, so let's use it. All right? And suppose you could work 1,000 hours a year. And let me tell you where I come up with this number, and it's a pretty valid number. 50 weeks in a year, 2 weeks off for vacation, and it makes the math easy. 50 weeks in a year times 40 hours a week. And you all just work 40 hours a week, right? Remember yaks. Remember you're not supposed to be working 100 hours a week. Okay, so 40 hours a week times 50 weeks equals how much? 2,000. All right, now what I've learned with all my experience in the service industries is that especially if you're working in a small company, not every hour is billable. Because you're going to be doing other things like what? What other things would you do in this business?
Looking at your windshield.
You're looking out your windshield, you're driving.
Checking your budget.
Pardon?
Budgeting.
You're budgeting, you're budgeting, okay. Yeah, what else are you, what's non-billable time? Getting parts. Doing marketing, we were just talking about the marketing budget. You know, it takes some other tasks. Stirring up some business, training the guys. You are lucky if you get 50% billable time out of yourself as a small company and even out of your guys as you grow your company. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I've measured my productivity since 2008.
Okay.
And as a company, I've never hit 40% a year.
You've never hit 40 because it's been lower.
I've never hit 50%. It's always been 45, 46%.
That's really good. 50 is as good as I've seen. 50 is rock star, but it also makes the math easy.
Right.
All right, so if you have a number that's different, go with your number. But that 50 is rock star, rock star. All right, but that's how I came up with the 1,000. So you're with me, right? If we wanted to make $100,000 a year, you're up to $100 an hour, and you haven't bought a pencil yet. So is your name Carol? Are you Carol? Okay, Carol and I were talking at the break, and one of the things she said, and I bet you relate to her story, is that if you don't share information, your guys start making assumptions anyway. For instance, they come home with a $2,300 check, and they subtract the $120 that you're paying them to do the work, and they assume that the difference is going into your pocket. Bless you. How many of you relate to what I'm saying? Yeah. All right, so you can see that this basic financial literacy information may be helpful to them. All right, so how much of the hour goes to them, goes to the owner? You don't have to share your information, but you could add things like fuel and advertising and insurance and payroll taxes, and you're going to get to $300, $400 an hour, right? If you want to make a six-figure income. Now again, these are just some ideas for how you could play with this information, but one of the things we usually don't account for are all the other costs of doing business above and beyond those direct costs. So one way, you said earlier, should we just share the numbers above? If your team is getting savvier, what you might do is just have one lump sum of overhead, because that overhead number is sometimes stunningly big. And that's not a bad thing to talk about, what goes into overhead, et cetera. So that can be a little bit scary. You add the cost of doing business and it starts to creep up there. Well, now I'm going to tell you the story. Who was in charge of reminding me? You were. Okay, now I'm going to tell you the story of just how this went down where I started to make more money. And this is not going to apply to everyone. When you come to convention, how many of you get that the brightest and the best folks end up making it to seminar, making it to the reunion? Right? That the guys who are struggling the most and need it the most don't ever come. Okay, so again, this may or may not land with you, but with someone you know or one of your guys who's going to go out and start their own business, I'm going to share this story about the day, that we came up with our selling price. So once upon a time in my plumbing company, we only did new work, big new construction work. Does anybody still do that kind of thing? All right, it's not for everyone, and it wasn't for me because I was losing my shirt to really, really wealthy people. The generals wouldn't pay me, they'd hold on to my money for a long, long time, and I was trying to be competitive with my selling prices. So this is when I wrote the letter to Uncle Frank, and he told me about my problems, and he worked with me to create a new selling price. And what we did is he added up my cost of doing business, divided by number of billable hours I could possibly sell, and then that gave me a break-even per hour, and I inflated it for profit. Well, at the time, now I'm going back to 1991, and at the time I was charging $30 an hour. You know why? My competitors were charging $35. That's how dumb this guy was. All right, I'm going to be even cheaper than those guys. Nice, right? Okay, so we're not making any money. I'm hating my life, and I come up with a selling price of $112.50 per hour, giving us a little bit of bump. $112.50 to like that 50 cents was really going to knock it out of the park. All right, so, but it is a significant increase from what I was charging the day before. And we put together a little flat rate book, and we decided to gussy up our guys a little bit. That meant the one guy who used to show up in a t-shirt, and this is the truth, would show up in a t-shirt that said, "Kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out." This is one of my team members. We changed him into a nice little chambray shirt, and it had a patch on this. I mean, this is all we did. If you're going to charge more, you got to be better, and all we did was put him in uniform. All right? And we decided to raise our prices to $112.50. This is our first day of doing this. And I send the 3 guys out on service calls. Now, they're shaking in their boots. They were charging $30 yesterday, and now they're at $112.50. And I send them out. Good luck to you. One guy ends up at my babysitter's house, and my baby is at the babysitter's house, and the babysitter calls me sobbing, "How can we rip her off this way?" That was the first call. All right, the second call, they called the Attorney General. And then the third call, they called the Better Business Bureau. That was my first day of raising our prices like that. Okay. So they come back at the end of the day bleeding at all points and completely destroyed, shaking, crying. And I'm like, okay, well, that obviously didn't work. It was a Friday. We sent them home. And then Hot Rod and I have a meeting. And I go, you know what? It doesn't work, and I don't want to do this anymore. I was willing to give it a go. I can go get a job. You can get a job. Let's shut this down. I don't want anything to do with it. And that was our decision until Monday morning, when the guys obviously had the meeting out in the parking lot, right? And they came back in, and they said to us, "We get what you're trying to do. We see where the numbers came from. We understand your intention. We're in." So I guess I'm not going out of business. I will tell you, I have no more recollection of it being a problem. And the key ingredients were I showed them where those numbers came from, and they trusted us. And they knew we were trying to do right by them. So we went to 150 and 250 and 350. I kept trying to find the upper limit, and then we just sold them the company. And to this day, they operate the company in Park City, Utah, and I'm really proud of them. That was 20 years ago. And since then, I've had the opportunity to play with these tools with all kinds of businesses, all service businesses for the most part, right? And so much of it comes to getting the guys in on the game. What do you want to share?
I gotta ask, what's their hourly rate today?
Oh, I don't know, but it's got to be north of 300. Yeah, and this is another thing for you to know when you go against your competitors. Another little thing I know from going to all the conventions. Someone will lay their hourly rate on the table. Somebody will say 400 or 500. You know, if you go to the what's the big electrical group? Is there another group that you could belong to? No, or is this it? This is it. This is good. But you'll see, I mean, some people are going to want to show off how much they charge, which is fine. But know this, depending on how many hours you put in your book, that'll make a difference too. So if a guy is at 250, but he charges 4 hours for that task, someone else is at 500, but he only charges 1 hour for that task, you're still more expensive. So there's more to the story, and this is why, again, just crunch the numbers. Here's when you'll know you're winning. Let me leave you with this quote, and this topic with this quote. It's by Edward Gibbons, and he said, "I am indeed rich, since my income is superior to my expense, and my expense is equal to my wishes. What do you want?" That's the only yardstick I want you to hold up. And if week after week you look at your financial quick check, week after week you look at your financials, you become the expert in you. And if the numbers are true and they're meeting your needs and wants, don't let me or anybody else tell you you're wrong. Fair enough? Did you have a question? Did anybody have a question over here? Are you loving this? Say yes. Isn't this good? I love talking about it. I was so excited to come all day. I don't go until 1:30. I can't wait to talk about this. My favorite topic. Okay, so how much to charge is a self-esteem problem? Let me tell you this. Look at this. Look at this. Can you see that?
I've seen a few trucks like it.
Have you? Is it yours?
I've seen some of my man's.
This is $1 million tip right here. I know, isn't that truck sad?
Yeah.
Here's $1 million tip right here. If you're not sure what you could do to add enough value to allow your customers to say yes to your prices, be they higher than your competitors by 1, 2, or 3 factors, right? The first thing I suggest you do is clean the place up. Clean is always good, dirty is always bad, and I am telling you, you can build an empire on clean. You raise your standards. This was the service manager's truck. And what it says about his self-esteem, his regard for his craft, and the owner's willingness to put up with that. If I were a young kid coming to this company, no matter what you told me about how excellent you are, is going to fall on deaf ears. So clean is so easy and so important. Take the t-shirts off the guys, put uniforms on the guys, tuck their shirts in, come in shaved every day. At the company that I work with right now, here's how you get fired. If you don't show up clean, sober, on time, and dressed right, and are willing to use our checklists, you will be fired. You'll get a rubber bullet, you'll get a written warning, and then you'll get out the door. Fair enough? Nobody gets fired for one. But that's how you get fired. But here's the cool thing. Anything else we're going to help you with. You make a mistake, we'll dig you out of the hole. We're here together. We're all going to make mistakes. All you've got to do, the price of admission to play a really great game is clean, sober, on time, dressed right, and you're willing to use our checklists. How easy is that? And everything else will help you get good. We'll play a great game. We'll get you in on the score. We'll play games where you can get bonuses, and we'll create a ladder of opportunity. Or we've got a small company, and it's like family, and we're going to love you like family as long as you show up clean, sober, on time, dressed right, and you're willing to do things the way that Mr. Electric is doing things, like our way of doing business. Fair enough? Okay. So how are you going to triple your prices and double your customers? Now, I've got kind of some free-form stuff that we can do here. I'm just going to keep an eye on the time. The budget helps you come to terms with raising your prices. That's why to dust it off or to go do it again is, what do you want for expenses? Make that top line bigger to your desired amount of profit, and there's your gain. All right, and then you come up with a selling price strategy that allows you to think that this game is going to work, and you'll know when you keep score week after week after week if it works. If it doesn't, raise your prices, fix something, put some projects together. We're going to send the guys to training or to sales class or something. Go ahead. Did you have a question, or are you just scratching? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So if you wanted to raise your prices, how do you make sure you don't lose your customers? Would anybody be interested in some ideas for this? Yes? No? Say yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. So prove it to yourself and your team. And by that, I mean show them the calculations. Show them the budget. The budget isn't even the real numbers, but you can say, I made the selling price up. I used their factor program. It's in the price book. Based on our budget, this is what we need for sales, this is what we need in expenses, and I don't want to charge more than I have to, but it's looking like I'm going to need to charge this much to make it work. But if you share it with them, you may get some buy-in. That's what I've found. All right? The second thing is this. This is so big. When price is, here, I'm going to use this. I'm so glad we brought it. Let me see if I can do this without falling off the stage, and I hope you can see it. Okay, when price equals value, there's no sale. In other words, if you're shopping and the money in your pocket seems to be exactly worth what you're anticipating buying, you might shop around. All right? When price is less than value, you're going to buy because you're getting a good deal, because cash is valuable. Does this make sense? When the value of that proposition, of that exchange, seems more than the cash in my pocket, then I'm going to buy. If you don't know how to communicate the value of your services, the easiest way to create this inequality is to make the price smaller. Does this make sense? This is what your guys do.
Will you say that one more time?
Yes. When the value is not greater than the price, the easiest way to create this inequality, which is going to lead to a sale, is to make the price smaller. So you say, Mrs. Fernwicke, it's going to be $2,400 to replace this breaker box. And she says, ooh, that seems like a lot. And then you say, okay, let's make it $2,000.
So when you said, if you don't know how to communicate.
So if you don't know how to communicate the value, the uneducated person's way to create this inequality, to create this sales situation, is to make the price smaller. Does this make sense? And I'm telling you, right now, I'm up to 119 times that I've put on the costume, and I get in the shotgun seat in the truck or the van, and I ride along with your techs. Oh, this is fun. How many of you do this? Oh, so important. So important about the love and just finding out. And this is what they do. Mrs. Fernwicke squawks, and they don't know better. They don't know how to increase value in the transaction, so they'll lower the price or come away with no sale. Does this make sense? So if you're going to raise your prices, on your list of things to do, on your top projects list, is to figure out ways through marketing, through sales, through communication, that you can communicate the value of what you're doing. And that way, your price can be whatever it needs to be, but the value is so big that you create that inequality and you lead to a sale. Here's another thing that happens when you or your team lower the price to get the sale. Your customer knows you were lying. Have you ever had that happen? They say yes, but the trust just went flying out of the room. You can feel it. All right, and then they know that if they hadn't said anything, you were going to charge them $2,400. All right, so this is all good because does Mr. Electric have sales training for your guys, for your team? I'm saying guys, there can be women here too, right? For your non-denominational people who work with you. Okay, yeah, so take advantage of it. Role play it, practice it, ride along in the truck and see what's happening. Because what I found in the ride-alongs is the guys are often not very skilled when it comes to communication. That someone who is really good with their hands is almost averse to actually talking to people. Who can relate to this? That your best technicians, if I were to say what got you into this gig, is it because you had opportunities to make sales, would recoil. These guys would go screaming out of the room. So can you learn those skills? Yes, absolutely. And do they ever have to be a plaid jacket wearing, fast talking guy? No. The quietest, most competent technicians I know have rock star sales because they learn to build value by showing up clean, sober, on time, dressed right, and they use a checklist. That's why we insist on it. Easy. Easy. Grow an empire. Make it easy if you want. Or it's just you and your family and you just want to make sure it's done your way. This is how you do it. This is fun. You love this, don't you? All right. I bet that makes no sense whatsoever, Leif, but we'll leave that there. Okay. Let me check this back. All right, so then where do you get examples of people who are doing this? Look outside of your industry. I'm telling you, the trades, the bar is low. All you got to do is show up clean, sober, on time, dressed right, and you can charge 5 times more than your competition. That's great. You don't have to take FedEx off the map. You don't have to take Disney off the map. You just have to take that guy who shows up with a t-shirt that says, "Kill 'em all, let God sort 'em out." That's your competition. This is easy. But you can go to other industries and discover what they're doing. Now look at Starbucks. Once upon a time, I worked in a coffee shop. I'm going to tell you a story of working at the coffee shop and my best boss ever, the best boss I ever met. But when I worked at the coffee shop, you could for 39 cents buy a cup of coffee and it would be refilled forever. And if you had told me that that commodity product would be a $7 cup of coffee at some point, how many of you have spent north of $5 on a cup of coffee? And for those of you who are really into coffee, some of you will say that Starbucks is not the best coffee. Would you agree? All right, but what did they do? They made it sweet and strong, and they over-roast those grounds so you smell it walking through the airport. They have these hip baristas and cool music playing and internet access. They create an experience, right? And then they can charge 3, 4 times. In most industries, the high price provider is the industry leader.
Wow.
Isn't that something? Now there's exceptions, like Walmart. But Walmart won that game. Do you get that? If somebody wants the cheapest possible part, they're going to go to Home Depot or Lowe's. Those guys won that game. So you have to run as fast as you can to the other end of the spectrum and figure out what people who don't want to go to Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot are willing to, you know what I'm talking about, are willing to experience. And then price is not the object. Clean, sober, on time, dressed right. And we're going to use a checklist so that we do it right, Mrs. Fernwicke. You don't have to go to Walmart. You don't have to go to Lowe's. I'm your guy. All right, so you look to other industries to find out how you can do it. And we're going to do an exercise in just a moment about listing the ways what makes you better. Now, we've already talked about that. You do this. Let me give you this tip. How many of you do bigger jobs? So there's service work where, you know, and that would include like something like a breaker box, but do a bigger job like new work, like you were saying, or remodels, kitchen remodels. Anybody do big jobs like this? Kitchen remodels, okay. And I think in your industry, especially with the cool lighting that's out there, if you were to limit people's choices, show them really cool, nice stuff, but a limited range. Have you noticed, who watches those HGTV shows where they redo a kitchen? And have you noticed that the designers give them black countertop or black with speckles countertop as their choices? Have you seen this? And the homeowners are still biting their nails and staying up all night trying to make that decision. If you haven't watched these shows, watch these shows, because what's so important about it is that don't give your customers a zillion choices. They went to you to direct them, right? Make it easy on them. Give them black and black with speckled. All right. Well, let me tell you about a sweet spot job. This is, for some of you who the numbers are kind of flying over your head and this doesn't apply, but this is really important for those of you who do nicer jobs. When you do a remodel or replacement and you have really nice materials, okay, you can charge a whole bunch per hour. Your hourly rate can be very high. And you're covering the nut, you're making your profit, and that material markup is gravy. Are you with me? So the more materials you have, the easier it is to bury your, you're getting this, decent hourly rate right in there, and you can actually be competitive. Where you're going to stick out like a sore thumb on a big job is a labor-only job where there's no materials. So don't do them. I just don't even do them, because you're going to be 3 or 4 times what the competitor is if he's charging $75 and you're charging $400 an hour. But if they're buying these gorgeous lighting fixtures that only you can supply, or that you make it easy for them to acquire, right? Then the overall mix of those jobs, I call these sweet spot jobs, and the gross margin on them is low because there's so much material in them. Don't worry about the gross margin on the jobs. Know that for the labor hour spent, your profit per hour can be enormous. All right, so that's just a little nugget, but it has made some wealth for people I know, okay? All right, so find the sweet spot job, and with this job, with any kind of job, the magic is going to be that you take care of all the details. You make it easy on them. All right, so the difference between a high-price contractor and a low-price contractor, here's why I do it. These guys right here. I love the technicians. I love them. I love them. They'll solve all your problems. Let them in on the game. Every shop I go to, the people are underutilized while the owners are ready to blow their brains out because they're so busy. And these guys keep laying stuff on you to do. We need a new flat rate book. We need a new truck. We need a new this. We need that. They're going to tell you what to do, but the key to your freedom and their job satisfaction is put them in. Put them in the game. And pay them well. Right? Give them bonuses based on performance. Give them bonuses based on getting projects done, because they'll solve all your problems. But the reason why your prices are going to be higher than someone else's is what you pay yourself and these guys. Make sense? All right. So until the value is established, the price is too high, and it can be too high for your team, for your customers. So what does your customer want? I want you to leave this room today with a few ideas for what you can lay claim to in your marketing, in your sales processes that are going to allow you to raise your prices and get to a yes. All right? So consider what your customer really, really wants. Maybe they want to save money. How many of you are really excited about is it LED lights? They're going to last for like 25 years, but they're a bigger investment on the front end. But could they help your customers save significant amounts of money? Absolutely. Commercial customers, are you kidding? Awesome opportunity. Some people want to save the earth and feel better. How many of you have worked for someone who's super rich, has an enormous footprint on the earth, but feels a little guilty about it and would like to do some energy-saving things to be a better guy? Anybody work with someone like that? Sure. All right. Some people are getting that we're going to need to reduce our addiction to foreign oil. So this is anybody here in solar or whole house automation? Oh, write that down. Write that down. I mean, if you want a niche, I think that one is just a plum for the taking. All right, solar, yes, but that home, nobody knows how to figure these wireless things out with their wired stuff. There's some niches here. Some people want to be comfortable. They want to be able to see the displays. They want to be able to make sure it all works, that they're not going to blow stuff out. It's easy to operate. And a lot of them want to find my guy. When I call a landscaper, an electrician, a guy to dump my septic tank, anybody, a home service guy who's coming to my house, I want to open the door and just hope you're not an axe murderer. I just want you to be my guy. And if you show up clean, sober, on time, and dressed right, I am really close to finding my guy. Right? That relationship is what we're after when we call someone. So, here's an exercise. I want you to do this, and then I want you to share with each other. But I want you to come up with 5 reasons why you're different and better. All right, and here are some. Right? I gave you some more: clean, sober, on time, dressed right. That you have checklists. Right? You don't have to come up with a new one. I just want you to lay claim to 5 things that you do that make you worth more than somebody else who will show up at my door. Are you with me? Do you understand the exercise? 5 things that you do different and better. They don't. Benjamin Franklin, it's Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. They had one. They have one. They just going to show up on time. That's the only thing that they promised. What do you promise? Safe's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think other people might have written that down. Go ahead, write down 5 things. How are you doing? You got it? Excellent. Okay.
The problem that I have is with the customers that, well, I bought my own fan and I bought my own switch and the tech went through everything and then they call me after the fact and say you charge too much. And it's like, well, so I'm going through the whole list of things. And they're like, but I bought my own fan and I bought my own switch. All you had to do was put it in.
Can y'all hear her? Okay, I'm going to repeat the question, and then I'm going to ask for your help on this. She's kind of jumping ahead to this, but this is absolutely part of this conversation.
I mean, I know what I do.
Yeah, but does your customer know that you do this? So let's get very specific here, and then we're going to come back to the exercise, the broader exercise. So, and what's your name? Christine. And we met at DSG when I did a presentation there. How nice. That's so fun. So she's saying, so suppose she goes to one of her technicians, or you're not an electrician.
I just switch on.
Okay, me too. Perfect. Don't you appreciate these guys? Absolutely. Okay. So one of your electricians goes to someone's house, and the customer has already bought their own stuff at Home Depot. All right? And then your guy puts it in, and later on it doesn't work, and now they're not happy and they want their money back. Does anyone have something to share with Christine? Oh, I knew you would. So why don't you share a thought?
You're a Home Depot vendor, right? Is that what you it's saying that it doesn't work. It still works. But no, we don't.
It may even work, but now later on their brother told them it was too expensive. Okay, so they're getting an after the fact thing. Okay, so let's answer that. And you've been speaking. Let me find someone who hasn't shared just to say, do you want to still answer the question?
Well, I didn't quite get your question right, but for something simple like that, because we're a Home Depot vendor, and Home Depot wants to keep the customers happy. So what I usually do is I'll pull Home Depot in, and they'll pay us to go out and replace something else.
That can help, is that you have a little background. But still, if the customer doesn't think they got the value later, this is armchair Monday morning quarterbacking. All right, who else has dealt with this before? Okay, let's have you share.
Well, I talked to the customer and find out why do you feel that it was too expensive.
I'm going to call the customer, and this is exactly it. You're going to ask, why do you feel it's too expensive? Oh, you have the microphone? I do. Okay, do you want to continue your thought? And then what happened?
I try to retain the customer and not give anything back.
Okay.
And I feel that when I spend the time to speak to the customer, they feel that our company has a value. I don't know, I guess it's like a customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And all I want is to be heard and understood and know that I care and there's someone that's there to, just to hear them out. So anyways, at the end of the whole conversation, I'm so glad I spoke to you.
And sometimes just a little bit of love.
Yeah, and then I tell her, well, you know what, check out my website, I have a coupon on there for Reconnect, whatever it is. And that's it.
Okay, and thank you. Let's give a round of applause for the people who are helping. Let me address this a little bit. This is my approach. I always assume that somewhere in that process, my tech dropped the ball. Okay, and I tell them that if someone ever calls and they want their money back later, what we're going to assume is there's something we could have done better earlier in the process. Because if you tell them that, it takes the sting out of it later when it feels like you're not backing them up. I also tell them that if I'm going to keep the customer or at least keep them from calling the Attorney General, I may give them all their money back. How many of you are willing to give all their money back and have found that makes life much easier?
I did that once, and she still turned me back in.
Sometimes it just is a bad day. Sometimes it's a bad day, but I go down swinging, and what I'll say is I know that somewhere along the line we probably dropped the ball in terms of adding enough value in the transaction up front to make the customer feel confident in our prices. Because if the customer feels really good in your prices when their brother-in-law on Monday says you got ripped off, you're going to get, you know what, talk to the hand. The guy showed up clean, sober, on time. He was dressed right. I knew it was going to be more expensive than me going to Lowe's and finding somebody to put in an inferior part, because your guy explained that. All right, so if you role play this, if you ride along with them, riding along is just do it. Just do it. If you ride along with your guys, who here is the owner? If you were to ride along with your guys, do you have guys on your team? I'm looking at you. Yep, okay. You're going to have your first guy? Okay, this is awesome. So you're going to start right out of the gate. You're, of course, going to visit with them. But here's the thing. Once they get that good, we abandon them. We never look at them again. And then they leave their keys on the desk, and we wonder what happened. All right, do you have guys on your team? Mm-hmm. No, who's right behind you? Yes. How many guys do you have? You have 9 guys. Do you ride along with them? No. Okay, listen to this. Listen to this. Listen, this is for you. Because if you were to ride along with one of your guys, what's the first thing the guy's going to think when you hop in the car, in the truck?
I'm scared to death.
Yeah, you're going to get fired. I'm in trouble. You knew, like right away, I'm in trouble. This is what's going to happen. Why is he riding with me? All right? And at the end, and if your goal for riding along is to get to know the guy and maybe learn something, that's all for your first time with this guy, do you think that might be time well spent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just mention it and they all straighten up.
Look, what's going to happen in that truck? Try to make the ride along not a fireable offense.
What I do like it's just to kind of get them.
Yeah, but see, this is like hitting the dog. Right? Let's get the fear out of there. Because at the end of the day, suppose you pick a guy and you ride along with him. Tell me the name of one of your guys. Daniel? Damon. Okay, does Damon have a partner or girlfriend or somebody at home waiting for him? Okay, so Damon, you're going to hop in the truck with Damon, and when Damon goes home that day, what's the first thing he's going to say to the person waiting for him at home? I had Lamar in the van. What? Did you get fired? But think about this. Your presence is so important to them. I get goosebumps talking about that. Like if you were to just dose them with you, and you're going to help, and you're going to carry stuff, and you're just going to observe, let them dig a hole. They would have dug a hole without you there. And if at the end of that ride along, instead of coming up with a checklist of 50 things they did wrong, what if you just bragged on them 100 ways and with their permission gave them one suggestion? One suggestion, and the suggestion might be based on your observation that you stood this close to the customer. Maybe next time, just step back, give her a little space. I don't know, but I am telling you, when you ride along with you guys, they are doing some really bonehead things that are super easy to fix. Super easy to fix, and if they stop doing it, their sales would go up. It is that good. Am I right? You know, or they're smoking, and they're doing this when the door opens. You don't know. And sometimes you'll think they're on their best behavior, but you start talking to them. You can tell if a guy's put on booties before because he does it while he's talking on the cell phone, and he figures out a little routine. He either leans against the door if he's a big guy, or he does something because it's hard to put booties on. Am I right? But you can tell if they've never put them on before. All right? And don't fire him for it. Just take note. But if what your presence in that truck comes to mean is that you're there to help them get good, help them figure out how to add so much value so that this doesn't turn into a call later, they're going to trust and love you. It is about the love. And if you start that with your guy on September 8th, is he all set, ready to go? You ride along and you say, you know what, I'm nervous, scared to death. You open your heart, you show it to him. And you say, we're going to figure this out together, you and me. And I'm going to be straight with you. And the two of you will rock it. Okay? Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so now let's go back to the exercise because this is also part of your answer, Christine. So what are some of the ways that you're different and better? And I gave you some hints. You tell me. What makes you different and better at your company? What do you got?
If we have an appointment between 9 and 10, I'm even going to be 3 minutes late. I call them. I might be 5 minutes late, but I'll be there.
As a homeowner, is this huge?
Yes.
All right, do they do that at the big box store? That's extraordinary, and it's that much. And if you communicate that, here's one of the reasons why we're pricier than the other guys. If we're going to be a minute late, we're going to let you know 100% of the time. It's why you're going to spend more today with me, Mrs. Fernwicki. I always call her Mrs. Fernwicki. All right, that's one of my guys started calling her Mrs. It's always Mrs. Fernwicki. Okay, all right, you got that? Who else has why are you different and better? Now, if you're a small company, I might love that about you. A small company has something that the big guys can't do. I'm your guy. I'm the owner of the company, and I can only take so many customers. So those who audition and are accepted into my world receive my personal service. Is that worth more? Okay, now if you're a big guy, who's got a big company? Who's got 10 trucks? Okay, so you have depth. And for some customers, that's going to be really important.
Always going to take care of it.
You know, if that truck goes down, I got 9 more just like it. And they've all been trained my way. They show up clean, sober, on time, and use a checklist. What else do you guys have? What do you have for things that make you different and better? What have you got? Do you guys have that as a program within Mr. Electric? That is huge. So I told a girlfriend of mine, I live out in the country. If somebody shows up to my house and they smell like meth or they look scary, I have my phone in my hand because it's 20 minutes and a lost sheriff before anybody's going to come find me, right? And my girlfriend who lives in Texas said, oh, honey, I have a gun. I do not greet my service technicians with a gun, but I understand her sentiment because we feel exposed. So if you say, we're going to send a picture of the technician before we get there and there's one of your guys just looking adorable, huge value, huge value. Okay, so now this goes into your conversation with your technicians. This goes into a sales process. Mrs. Fernwicke, I'm going to put some prices together for you. Or over the phone, they try and beat you up about a price. Mrs. Fernwicke, we don't give prices over the phone. Do you give prices over the phone? Okay. We don't get, do some people want you to? Yeah. Okay, this is a script. You're going to get the recording of this. Mrs. Fernwicke, we don't give prices over the phone. The worst thing that we could do is to share a price with you, send our service tech your way, and then have that price change in the field. All right? That would make you and me very unhappy. And you and I really don't know what the situation is. What I can do is I can send one of our licensed, trained professionals. He'll show up clean, sober, on time, and dressed right. And I'm going to send you a picture of him before he gets there so you know who to expect. And he's going to do a diagnosis on your situation, and he'll give you a price before he starts the work. Is this generally what you do? At that point, you can say yes or no. All right, but at least you will, however, you will have learned something about your system, and you'll be more educated for the experience. Fair enough? Can I send somebody your way? And then she says, no. ABC Electric said it's going to be $75. I'm not signing up without knowing the price. Sorry. Okay. And then you say, Mrs. Fernwicke, may I ask you a question? I just do this to mess with them. I don't know why I started doing this, but this is what I do. Mrs. Fernwicke, may I ask you a question? And she's going to say yes. And yes is moving us in the direction of yes. It's totally just for my entertainment, that piece of it. Mrs. Fernwicke, may I ask you a question? Sure. If you are disappointed in any way with the service provider you selected, if he doesn't show up on time, if the price changes from what you were quoted in the field, would you do me a favor and call me right back, and I'll send somebody over? Fair enough? I'm not going to say, I told you so. I'm not going to give her any grief. I'm going to be delighted when she calls back and I go, oh, hey, I was hoping you'd call back. I'm going to send Vince right over. I'm going to send Damon. He's terrific. You'll see him within the hour. Thank you very much, okay? Now, that customer is not going to be as price sensitive as someone who didn't go through the experience of saying no. So you just make it safe for him to come back. Isn't this good? And so you look for ways to layer on why you're different and better. And here is the thing that your competition can never duplicate. It's your team. If you don't sign on with me, you don't get me. You don't get my team. You don't get this family. That's the one thing that the other guys will never be able to duplicate. So if you're up for it, put you in your ads. Right? That's not for everybody, but get on the radio. Hey, it's Dale from Mr. Electric, and I want you to join our family. Right? That you put yourself in the picture, and everything that you do focuses on why your people are different and better, and no one will touch you at any price. Does this make sense? Right? Oh, so good. All right. What do we have for time? It all goes so fast. Okay, so you're going to sell your team. What's in it for them? You know what? I'm a big fan of bonuses. Who puts a game together where the guys win a bonus or get to play in some way? You know, there's plenty of work to be done. Who pays by the hour? Does anybody pay by the hour? Who pays commission? Both. Okay, both. We got both going. Okay, really, it doesn't matter, but the culture that you create, the competition can turn to the dark side in terms of cutthroat pricing and everything. I don't see this very often, but it can happen. It is leadership that makes the difference in this situation. Play a game, but let it be okay to fail. You're not going to win every week. It doesn't make you less of a person. I've seen guys have heart attacks because they had 52 straight weeks of hitting goal and then they had a week that was bad. That takes leadership to work through the bumps. You win some, you lose some. This is just a game. We live to play another day. But if they're held accountable, if you track sales, if you put up the big board, if you put those KPIs up, here's what I know, like I know. You have to train. Because if they're the guy who's losing, and you never do anything to help that brother out, that's mean. Do you get that? Okay. So if you're going to track, you got to train. And if you train, you got to track, because how do you know if your training's any good? The numbers should move. All right? Okay, and adopt a sales guru. You've got plenty of sources here. You don't have to be the expert at sales. I'm not even an expert at sales, but I know some great guys. You bring them in, you put on a sales class, you use a sales system. They have one at Mr. Electric. Is it implementation or is it information? The information is there. All right, so just jot down through the course of a seminar, working today, jot down, leave this seminar, leave this reunion with a list of projects that you're going to commit to. 5, all right, that may move the needle, that if you did this much would have a giant impact. The financial quick check or some kind of dashboard report, looking at those numbers, balance sheet and profit and loss once a week, compared to budget, play a big game. To play a game with your guys, and then to have some sales training to help them get better, oh, this would be delicious. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the ride-along. And then I'm going to tell a story, and I think that's going to bring us to the end of the day. Before I do, I want to talk about the ride-along. Would you like to hear more about that? Yeah. Okay, this is good. This is gold, and I don't hear people talk about this nearly enough, so I think you're going to get some new information here. But you get this about the selling price, right? This is on how much should I charge. I had a thimble full of content. Raise your prices. And my intention was to help give you some encouragement and inspiration and some ideas for how you could do that successfully. Have you had a good day so far? Yeah, you having fun? Does anybody have a burning question before I go on to the ride-along and the story I'm going to finish up with today? I'll leave some time at the end to ask questions too, and then we're going to meet each other at the pool. All right? Okay, now let me talk about the ride-along. And some dance party music is going to play in a few minutes, so I'm going to turn off the alarm. But I'm going to need someone like you, Kyle, to let me know when it's 5 o'clock and we're hard stopping. Okay, so you're going to give me a big one of these. All right, so let me talk to you about the ride-along and the suggestion I'm making here about ask good questions. Here's my story with riding along. When I was asked to be the president of Benjamin Franklin, it didn't exist. And I wanted to try my hand at growing a company, and I had this opportunity. When life gives you these awkward, weird moments, I encourage you to say yes. All right, figure it out. Build the plane as it's flying. If it's something you really want to do, even if it means stretching yourself, just say yes. All right? Well, I was pretty lost, and I signed on my first franchisee, and I go to their shop, and they're a startup franchisee, and they have one guy. He looks like he's 12. His name is Nick. And he's standing next to this big brand new box truck, and we shake hands, and I'm going to get in the truck with him, and lo and behold, I find out at the end of the day he thought he was getting fired. Now, I'm not his boss. There was no way that was going to happen, but it's just that's how weird ride-alongs are. Red tie on, which is weird for a service tech, but whatever. So we get in the truck, and I say, okay, here's the goal for the day. I'm new to this. I thought maybe you could teach me something, so I'm going to ask you some questions. And if there's something I can do to be of service to you, I'm going to make that happen. But here, I'm starting this new thing. I was honest with him in terms of what my fears were. I'm starting this new thing, and your input would be really good for me because you are a fantastic guy, and I would not like to blow it up between us. I'd like to have something really cool happen. He says, okay. And I'm getting to know his family, and I finally have to ask him, what is up with the tie? And he says, well, it's in the manual. And I said, it is? Which is weird, because guess who wrote the manual? And guess who copy and pasted a manual that I found? When it came to the uniform piece, I hadn't even read it. I'm the one who told this guy he's supposed to be wearing a clip-on red tie. And this is revealed. Yeah, and I'm asking him, whose dumb idea was that? And he's yours, I guess, because this is franchisee number 2 as we're doing this. So I reach over and I grab the tie and I yank it off of him and I say, I'm sorry about that. We're not doing that. And I watch the light go on with this kid. That, okay, she's paying attention. She made a mistake. She did a really bonehead thing. But she took responsibility, and that's an improvement based on me being in the shotgun position in his truck. Do you see this? Now, it's interesting that this guy, he's like 30 years old now, and his owners also own several other businesses, one of them being this franchise company. And he, at 30, runs a $16 million shop.
He wears a red tie.
Not anymore. He does wear a big old cowboy hat, and he's just adorable. But you know what? I've seen this guy maybe 3 times since that day. And he and I have an instant bond. That's all it took, was just 1/2 a day of paying attention to them. So when I ride along, here's my suggestion. I say, listen, I'm going to come up with 10 ways to brag on you. And with your permission, I'll give you one suggestion, just one, at the end of the day for how you might do things better. And then when we're riding along, you know, I am not the best technician, but I've done this for so long and I've been on so many ride-alongs. Let me tell you what I know. When they're out in the field, the stuff that's bad looks bad and smells bad. You don't have to be super talented. With this guy, I went on a ride-along, and he said to the customer, first off, he says he asks 5 questions before he starts doing any work. He just adds them up in his head. He asks 5 questions because most of the time your guy goes straight to the breaker box and starts fixing things. This is what I found on the ride-alongs. Never builds any value. Straight to the breaker box, starts fixing things, does something, now goes to charge the customer. They feel like they're over a barrel and this whole thing unwinds. That's what happens. Okay? But this guy asks 5 questions. And one of the things he says to his customer is this, it's so good. Would you like to tag along while I work? Now, how many of you have guys who would hate for this to happen?
Yeah.
Would you like to tag along while I work? And the customer is going to say yes or no. And if the customer says yes, might I suggest it's something you get used to. Because when they tag along, they can see and smell that it's bad. So in this particular job, we go out, and there's a cucaracha. This is an HVAC tech. There's a cucaracha in the capacitor. I don't know what the capacitor is. That's just what he told me was holding a fried cucaracha, cockroach. So he says to the customer, that's bad. No script, no zillion reasons why just that's bad. And the customer went, oh, okay, I'll put together a price for the capacitor. That's what that thing is. All right, you need it for this thing to work. Okay. So the trust is going up. All right, so if the customer says, no, I don't want to look, you find the cucaracha in the breaker box or whatever, and you say, I'll come find you if there's something I think you need to see or smell. Because it's going to smell bad or look bad. Am I right? A lot of the time. Sometimes in your business, no, but if you can see it and smell it, let them see it and smell it. So I'll come get you if there's something that I want you to see, and you just show them and you say, that's bad. I can put together a price and make that all better for you. It shouldn't look like that. It shouldn't smell like that. This is how easy it is. But if they don't take the time to ask some questions about that, how long have you been in the house? Has it ever worked right? Do the lights ever flash? You would know the questions, right? You would know them. Your guys help you figure it out. You ask 5 questions, and then you make a diagnosis, and then you let them come along with you. Okay, that's when it works really, really well. So at the end of the ride-along, I might not have any suggestions. I might just say, you absolutely rocked it. Everything you did was wonderful. The customer loved you. You got the sale. Thank you. Would be a nice way to end that day. Is it ever good enough for you people? Is it ever good enough? And if you gave him just one thing, here's what's so cool. Suppose you say to the other guy, you know, the next time we go on a ride-along, you went right past any diagnosis, you started doing the work, and then it kind of backed up on you, and then they felt like the price was too much. If you had slowed down and asked more questions at the beginning, it might have gone easier. So the next call we go on, I want you to ask the customer one question before you start doing any work. What could that question be? And you talk about it in the shotgun position as you're riding to your next call. Are you with me? Okay. Now, if that service tech attempts in any way to ask a question, he gets a win. I was going to do that, but that's a whine. He gets a win. He gets a win. He tried to ask the question. Even if it was an awkward, weird question, it is a high five. And here's what's so magical about that. This is so good for you. I love this guy already. So much potential. Okay, this is so good because if he tries to edit his behavior, he's willing. He is coachable. This guy could get good. And that is how you get him good. I don't care what the one thing is, he just tries. Because here's the thing, suppose you have a guy, and maybe even ask for it. We need 8 years experience. Let's say he goes on 1,000 service calls a year. This makes the math easy. He's been on 8,000 service calls. By the time he comes and works for you, he's on autopilot. He may not be able to change. And if you ride along for a day or two, you'll know. Is that gold? He'll start, I can't, I don't want to, he'll push back. All you're looking for is willing. And usually, a willing and basically capable guy, I mean, they have to walk so fast. They have to be able to hold a channel ox with one hand. I mean, there are certain capacity tests that you would be able to use in your business, right? If he has the basic capacity and if he's willing, you can help him get good, and that's your responsibility. And the more training you're willing to do, the less experience you need. And the bigger the pool. Who's the guy who won the Recruiter Award? Is he still there? You won the Recruiter Award? Are you willing to train team members?
Sure.
Okay. So is it required that you have experience before you come to your shop?
Well, yeah, we get licensing restrictions.
Okay. I'm going to make a suggestion to you. You've already, may I? Sure. With your permission. I should ask permission, right? You don't have to do this, but here's an idea, and you're the Recruiter of the Year. If you could adopt a standard where no experience was required, and you're willing to help a guy get good from the get-go, a line will form around your door because the willing and basically capable guys are not being hired without licenses. Do you see what I'm saying? They're in this no man's zone. So if you're the one who sets up an electrical wall of 20 things that comprise 80% of your service calls, and it's fired, it's electric, what do you call that? It works, right? It's not fake, and it's good stuff. And you're going to teach your guys how to do things your way there, even if they've been to trade school. Then those are the guys that will do it your way because they don't know another way. How good is that? You can get as big as you want to go. Now, that may take 5 years. How long do you have to play to be licensed?
It's close to 5 years.
Okay, how fast did the last 5 years go?
Fast.
And the next 5 will go faster. Grow an oak tree. Does this make sense? You want an oak tree, you plant an oak tree. And it's going to be 5 years before that oak tree looks like much. But if you don't plant it today, in 5 years you won't have an oak tree. All right, so I'm challenging you with that. Congratulations on your award, too. Okay, do you have a question?
Just relay that.
Okay.
Our little mini storage business, they make great exercise rooms for this. You and I communicated about that the last time at Panera Bread.
Exercise rooms, is that what you're calling it?
Playrooms or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, for your training? I love it, a playroom. Because don't they love the technical stuff? Don't they? You say, we're going to train you, we're going to, come in on Saturday, come stay a little, and we're going to train you on this stuff. We're going to buy your tools, because who pays for everything? Customer. Do you think your customer is well served to have, if you want to, an army of guys who do it the way you want them to do it? In your case, yes, if that's your vision. In your case, you work on what you have. You work on your breaker box. You take him out there, let him blow that up. Okay. All right, so the ride along is all about helping them win. And when your presence in the truck is treated as a gift, it is, and they know that you're only there to help them get good, that has this deep cultural change on your company. I want to tell you a little snippet about the best boss I ever worked for. And when I was 20 years old, my car broke down. I went to University of San Diego. I was just about to graduate with this hoity-toity degree at the top of my class, thinking I was all that, and a bag of chips. And I'd worked about 85 jobs at this point in my career, a lot of them in the restaurant business, and a lot of them in really nice restaurants, where you did full wine service, and you know, the average ticket was like $100 a person. I was a total snob about restaurants, and my car broke down, which meant I could no longer get myself to the job that I had, and I had to look for, this is just typical me too, as opposed to getting the car fixed. I just thought, I'll get a different job. I'll get a job that I can walk to. So one day I'm jogging, sweatpants on, and a t-shirt that said Cheech and Chong. Just saying, I got better. Okay, and I'm jogging, and I go running into this, I go running and I see this coffee shop, and the coffee shop is called Foxy John's. Foxy John's, what does that even mean? And it's a coffee shop, and I'm running, and I don't want to work there. I don't want to work at a coffee shop. I'd never work there, but I'm right here, so I go in. Dripping sweat, leaning on the hostess stand, and I say, can I have a job? Now keep in mind, at even the nicest places I had worked before, that activity had led me to a job. Oh, good, can you start right now? Okay, go see Susie in the back, she'll get you a uniform. Okay, great, that's it. You don't have to be any more than that, and you could get a job. Has anybody had a job like that in a restaurant? Boom, there you go. You're breathing, great, you're hired. Well, the hostess behind the hostess stand, it's about 2:30 in the afternoon, looks at me with disdain, and she says, here's an application, doesn't even want to touch me, here's an application, fill it out, come back at 2:30 on Saturday, and Jackie, the owner, will take you through the first interview. I take the application, and I'm like, do they know that I'm like kind of slumming it to even be here? So, oh, she says to me as I walk out the door, and dress up. So I take that, and I'm never going to work here. Why would I work there? But Saturday, I got like a little khaki shirt on and a blouse. Didn't iron it. And I have my application and a resume that I put together in my personnel class, proving how cool I am and why I would never work here. But I show up at 2:30. And at 2:30, I sit in a booth, and this whole place, it's tacky, tacky, tacky. It looks like there's more wrought iron in this coffee shop than in the French Quarter in New Orleans. And it's like brown Naugahyde benches. And I'm looking around at this thing, but one thing strikes me, it is sparkling clean. There is no dust on any of this wrought iron. And I pick up the salt shaker. Do you ever do this just to test like the restaurant you're in? You either I pick up the salt shaker and it is pristine. I look under the table and there's no gum. And I'm thinking, that's interesting. And then Jackie appears, and she's dressed to the nines. She looks great. She sits down, she shakes my hand, looks me in the eye, shakes my hand properly, and she starts grilling me with questions. If you saw someone else steal, would you tell me? What if you poured coffee in someone's lap? How would you handle that? And I found myself engaged and surprised at myself when I accepted a second interview at a coffee shop. And I go home and I'm telling my roommate about this, and I go, but you're not going to work at a coffee shop? No! But I show up for the second interview, and this time I look a little nicer. And this time it's Jackie and the dining room manager. Where did that title come from? And now they're grilling me. We got all sorts of questions, and they're checking out my resume, and they're putting me through the paces, and I find myself on the edge of this Naugahyde seat, excited when they say, you've made it through to the next step, which is a junior waitress at Foxy John's coffee shop. And I'm like thinking, I read already. When do I get to make some money? I guess, I don't know, but I'm not going to take this job. And she even says to me, Jackie says, before you accept, I want you to see the uniform. I like the uniform. I make them. And you'll wear it. But before you sign on, you should see it. And she snaps her fingers. Now, up until this point, the restaurant was empty, which is a good time to take applicants. But some girl comes from the back of the restaurant, about my age, and let me describe what she's wearing. Now, I know I'm going over a minute or two, but I don't want to shortcut all the details of this story. So this is what this chick has on, and I'm not making one bit of this up. She stands there, and she's wearing nurse's shoes. Whiter than the surface of the sun, bright white nurse's shoes. Now, I am 21 years old, okay? Just keep that in mind. And then support hose, like the color of Band-Aids that your Nana wears. Okay, then hot pants, this is the 80s, kids. Hot pants made of what looks like the same material that's on the booth seats. This thick, brown polyester that looks really comfortable. Hot pants covered with a kicky skirt, who knows why. And then there's this apron, this is dark brown, like UPS brown. Then there's this apron of yellow and white gingham that must be made of Kevlar or something. You could shoot a bullet right here, not penetrating, just ping, like that. The waitress's sleeves were so poofy that her earrings were resting on the sleeves. And I'm looking at this thing, and this is how we work. This is the mentality of an employee. I'm looking at this thing going, okay, but I'm not doing the shoes. And Jackie read my mind and said, oh, you'll do the shoes. I hadn't even said that out loud. She just knew that I was going to hate it. And they all hated it, and that was the price of admission. I like them, she said. I make them. So I say yes. I go home, I take this uniform, and I set it on the table. It stands there while my roommates are just, oh, you will never date again. I know. I can't wear this. I can't work there. But the whole time, I'm like fascinated at how is she pulling this off? So I climb into that thing, and I show up on my first day of work, and this is what I do. I wrap myself in a trench coat to walk to work, and I'm shuffling my shoes like this to scrape the white off of them the whole way. And I get to work, and now it's busy. It's now 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and if you've been in the restaurant business, is busy good? Busy's really good. And I can smell the money, and I'm starting to get a little intrigued. But what's the first thing I do? I go find another chick with this uniform on, and I say, what's up with this uniform? What is it? And right away, I'm trying to subvert the process. Day one, minute one, I'm going to go find someone else to become a criminal with me. Don't they do this at your shop? Is this all a lie? Does anybody actually do this? And the chick says to me, oh, it's Jackie. She has terrible taste, but you can make a ton of money here. Is the uniform? Just wear the uniform. You'll get fired without the uniform, just saying. So I take it off, we have it all on, and now things are buzzing. I gotta tell you, I was not allowed to talk to a customer for my first 9 days of work. Training manual was the size of a San Diego phone book. You had tests every day. You think your guys have paperwork? A coffee shop waitress will go through 100 tickets in an hour. Our tickets came back with red marks, which we had to correct before I got paid $2.01 an hour. But it was busy. And it was fun. And I put up with that. Your guys will put up with the uniform that they hate. They'll put up with the tools that they would rather have another tool if it's fun and there's love. Because you know, Jackie on Saturdays would strap herself into that uniform, and she was no small woman. And she would carry the plates on her arms, and she would play with us. And it was fun, and it was organized, and we had contests. I once bought a brownie myself to win the dessert contest. And there was love, and there was sanity. And this neighborhood that I lived in was so bad that at the end of the day, my tips, mostly coins, would be wrapped up with tape in a milkshake cup. and I would put on my trench coat, and I would run as fast as I could down the yellow line on the way to my house because I could be harmed. In that kind of neighborhood, she had those kind of standards. And might I suggest that that's what you are capable of doing, is elevating electrical service work to something that means the world to a kid like me. And I will tell you, I did not recognize her greatness when I was there. It was only later when I realized the sanity that she imposed in this environment. So don't be discouraged if they don't get it. It hit me like 5 years later. Raise your standards. Create an arena of sanity, of love, and it will have a deep, resonating effect across the planet, and I thank you for that. I wish you love, peace, lots of money, and freedom, and thanks so much for having me play with you today. And we went over a little, 504. I love that story.